Yeah, well, and actually, the root, one of the root main meanings of that root is guiding teacher,
which is what we so desperately need at this time.
Okay, can you guys join my screen again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can do that, brother. All right, I'm here.
Okay, can you tell me who else is here? Is Mona here?
Yes,
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see my screen? And Fatima?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So where we left off is the root word of Rashad is in between this context, and in here this believing Egyptian comes out of nowhere and just says, "Hey, how can you kill a man for doing this?" Right? Now here is the first mention of the word of Rashad. It's in verse 40:29, right? Rashad, right? Here is the second mention of the word Rashad. It's in verse 40:38. Rashad, right? Remember, these are the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, right? And right dead set in the middle, right? It says, Joseph has come to you before that with clear revelations, but you continued to doubt his message. Then when he died, you said, God will not send any other messenger after him. He was the last messenger. God thus sends astray those who are transgressors, doubtful. Now, isn't it very interesting that in between the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, right, dead set in the middle, is God warning you against making that, against people saying, hey, the previous messenger was the last messenger. And also, look at this. What was God's response to people saying the previous messenger was the last messenger? God's response was a bad one, right? God says, so God thus sends astray those who are transgressors, doubtful. So God is already warning you against making this claim that the previous messenger was the last messenger. His response was, he sends you astray. And then God goes on further. They argue against God's revelations without any basis. This is a trait that is most abhorred by God and by those who believe. God thus seals the heart of every arrogant tyrant. Ready? So look, what was God's response to people thinking the previous messenger was the last messenger? Did God respond in a positive way? Well, what did he say? He said he abhors this. He said, this is how I send people astray. I abhor this. He hates this, right? And it's between the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, right? Al-Rashad and then El-Rashad in verse 40:38, right? And I also wanted to add, another very interesting thing here. This one who believed is the believing Egyptian that came up in verse 40:28 here. So he's a believing Egyptian. And by the way, Rashad was Egyptian. But this believing Egyptian comes out of nowhere, right? And he says, "Oh, my people, follow me and I will guide you in the right way." And the right way is Rashad, right? So who is this believing Egyptian who is not a messenger, but he's acting like a messenger? You know what I mean? He's speaking with this authority. Like, who in the Quran says, "Follow me and I'll guide you in the right way"? Who is this believing Egyptian that comes out of nowhere and starts telling people to follow him, right? It's almost like he's mirroring Rashad. And it's in between the only two mentions of El-Rashad, right, in the entire Quran, right? So it's in between the only two mentions of El-Rashad in the entire Quran. And right dead set in the middle, it's God warning you against thinking the previous messenger was the last messenger, right? Now there is another interesting one. It's in chapter 72.
Mr. McLincoln.
Yeah, what's up?
The verse where you're saying that is sort of mirroring Rashad. Does that happen to be a multiple of 19?
Yeah. It's 19 times 2, by the way.
Oh, very interesting. All right, that's
okay.
Cool.
So I wanted to go on to Surah Jinn. Now, what's interesting is in this surah, Rashad cited a lot of mathematical things in here, right? But if we just scroll all the way down, we see some very interesting associations here, right? Right. So God says that he is the knower of the future and he does not reveal the future to anyone, right? Except to a messenger that he chooses does he reveal from the past and the future specific news, right? This is to ascertain that they have delivered their Lord's messages. He is fully aware of what they have. He has counted the numbers of all things. So are you seeing what I'm seeing here, right? So he's talking about messengers. He's talking about giving messengers specific things, right? And then he's associating that with counting the numbers of all things, and he knows what the messengers have. So he counted the numbers of what the messengers have, right? And interestingly, that phrase, only to a messenger that he chooses, has a geometrical value of 1919, right? And then if we even go on further, do you see this word here? It says, khalfihi rasada. Khalfihi rasada. So hold on. Does that sound like Khalifa Rashad here? Now, obviously, it's not the same word, but it has an interesting sound to it. It sounds exactly the same. So hold on. So this verse here is saying that God gives messengers specific things, and God has counted the numbers of all the things, and God knows all of the numbers of the things that the messengers have, and it even... And the only two messengers that he chooses has a geometrical value of 1919, and he uses the word khalfihi rasada all in the same context. Right? It's very interesting. It's very interesting that all of this is in the same context. Again, only two messengers that he chooses has a geometrical value of 1919. God talks about messengers getting things in the context of numbers, and God has counted the numbers of all things, including the things that the messengers have, and he uses the word khalfihi rasada. Very interesting, right? And if you add these up, 7 plus 2 plus 2 plus 8, it's also adds up to 19. But let's also go up to here, right? Because this is this is actually a nice mirror to what happened with Rashad, basically, right? So it says the places of worship belong to God. Do not call upon anyone else beside God. When God's servant advocated him alone, almost all of them banded together to oppose him. Right? Now, if you know anything about Rashad, what basically he said is you can't add Muhammad to your shahada. You can't add Muhammad to your prayers. You can't do any of that, right? So when he did that, right, almost all of them banded together to oppose him, right? And he says, look, you can't put Muhammad's name next to God in the mosque, right? It says the places of worship belong to God. Don't call it anyone else. But they even have a thing called Tayatul where they like Assalamu alayka yuha nabi and all that stuff, right? So it's basically saying, hey, all of this messenger that he's saying, he just advocated the worship of God alone, and almost all of them banded together to oppose him, right? And do you want to know what's interesting about this? It's verse 19 of all verses.
Not only that, but 72 plus 19 is also 19.
Yeah, like 7 plus 2.
The digits, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. 72 plus 19?
7 plus 2 plus 1 plus 9.
Wait. I never even... Whoa. It's verse 19, and then you add the digits, it's also 19. Dang, you one-upped me, Mr. Triple A, praise God. I've never known that in 20 years of submission.
Well. So what's interesting is that Mr. McLincoln is pointing to these two verses, 72:19 to 72:20 to 72:28, and both 72:19 and 72:28, their digits add up to 19. It's like showcasing the cutout that this is relevant to the code 19. This is between these 2 points.
And guys, the phrase "only to a messenger that he chooses" has a geometrical value of 1919. Prashad wrote it right. Where do you say it? It's right here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Only to a messenger that he chooses has a value of 1919. There is so much in just these two chapters, and believe me, we're not even close to being done yet. There's so much in these two chapters here that are like giving you giant red flags and giant hints, right? That, hey, this guy here, he's a messenger. They even use a word that sounds just like his name in the context of God counting the number of the things the messengers have, and a phrase that has a grammatical value of 1919, all in the same context. And then it talks about the main message of basically of Rashad, right? And it's verse 19. If you add the digit, it's a multiple of 19, and it's basically just Rashad preaching strict monotheism, right? What kind of if you think about a messenger from God, like what kind of message could be possibly more pure than, hey, I want your entire religion focused on God and nobody else, right? I mean, it's just the central message. But hold on, there's a lot more to it, right? So he said that the root word of Rashad exists, in the Quran 19 times,
Sorry.
right? Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt. Is this being recorded? Because it should be.
Yes, it actually is. It actually is.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Okay, so what I was going to say is that the we know the root of Rashad, right, is in the Quran 19 times, right? And Mona, I wanted to ask you this. Guess how many years he was a messenger?
19?
Oh yeah, and ready? Check this out. Ready? So he was a messenger, and he started being a messenger in 1971, right? And here it is again talking about how this is the day he really became a messenger, right? And we know he died on 1990, right? Right, so that's 19 years. So Rashad was a messenger for 19 years. Now, the Quran says that God is the one who controls life and death, right? So how would Rashad know when he was going to die? Because he wrote when he was going to be a messenger before he died, obviously, right? So how did Rashad know when he was going to die, right? It's interesting that he was a messenger for 19 years. The root of his name is, in the Quran, 19 years, right? But hold on, let's just go a little further, right? Okay, so do you see here that this is Rashad's birthday, right? November 19, 1935, and he died in January 31st, 1990, right? Okay, so I have an interesting, so it's just an app that calculates the number of days between the two dates. So I put November 19, 1935, and you can go ahead and verify it here. And I have January 31st, 1990. You can go ahead and verify it here, right? And the number of days between these two dates is 19,798. Okay, now just very briefly, let's just see if this is a multiple of 19 or not. Oh, it turns out to be a multiple of 19. Very interesting, right? Now, there's more to this number than you realize. Do you know about code 19 in general, like the mysterious initials? Mona?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Facing
so
29 chapters.
Yeah, right. So, do you know which chapter has the most of those mysterious initials? And take a guess. It's probably the right amount. Like, it's probably the right number. It's chapter 19. So chapter 19 has the most initials, right? In the entire Quran, chapter 19 has the most initials, right? So here's chapter 19, right? So all the other chapters have, like, the one that has the second most is Taha Sin Mim and Alif Lam Mim Sad and Alif Lam Mim Ra, right? But chapter 19 has 5 of them, right? Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, right? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Are you guys still with me?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so so in code 19, chapter 19 has the most initials, right? And if we count the initials, and this is actually from our user, Dude, who actually color coded and counted the initials of this chapter. And by the way, this is not contested, right? Basically, everybody agrees with this, right? So let's count the number of initials in this chapter. All right, so it's 798. Okay, I'm going to repeat. It's chapter 19 has the most initials in the Quran, and it has 798. Do you see what's going on here? Are you guys seeing it? 19, 798,
sorry.
And then chapter...
Can you be specific?
Okay, so...
Days, that's days, Mona, days.
The number of days that Rashad lived is 19,798. Right? And the number of initials in chapter 19 is 798. 19...
Chapter 19, yeah.
Naveed, mute yourself, please. Okay, so chapter 19 has 798, right? And Rashad lived 19,798.
Very cool.
Mona,
Understood.
did you understand it?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, so we know that God controls life and death, right? So not only is the number of days he lived a multiple of 19, but it's also the number of initials of the chapter with the most initials in the Quran, which has 798 counts of those initials, right? Isn't that very interesting? And another okay, so how are we so far? Do you kind of understand what's being said so far?
Yep, I do.
Okay, so let's see. Where else was I gonna go to? Oh, okay. So do you know where his mosque is?
Tucson.
More specifically, this is his address, 739 East 6th Street, right? Let's add up the initials, like the address number. 19. Okay? Interesting, right?
39,
Hey,
I guess.
it's
Oh,
also
amazing.
in
Seriously.
Tucson, Arizona.
I'll do it.
Hey, peace. Can you please? It's also in Tucson, Arizona. And what does that zip code end in? Do you guys see it?
19.
19. Okay. Let's take a look at the map. So here's the map, right? Here is Messenger Tucson. Okay. Do you see which highway it is off of?
No.
It's off of Highway 19, and it's also off of Highway 10. We'll talk about Highway 10 in just a second. But do you see which highway it is off of? So the digits add up to 19.
That's the only.
The
That's
zip
the only
code,
Highway
Naveed,
19
stop.
in the
I know,
country.
Naveed, stop.
God is running everything.
The zip code ends in 19, right? And this is the only Highway 19 in the entire U.S., right? Now, what's interesting is this highway was built after Rashad moved to Tucson. Do you guys hear what I said? This highway was not yet built, right? When he moved to Tucson. It was built after he moved to Tucson, Arizona. Right? So the zip code is a multiple of 19. The digit out of 19, and it's off of the only Highway 19 in the entirety of the U.S. There's so many 19s around here. Now, what's the significance of this Highway 10 here as well? If you guys remember, there are 29 chapters in the Quran that have those code 19 initials, which is 19 plus 10, 29, right? Another thing, Rashad was martyred. He was stabbed 29 times, almost like it was pointing out to that event, like 10 plus 19 is 29, right? So it's very, very interesting, right? That all of these 19s are coming up all and kind of intersecting at where Rashad is, right? So not only did we get what we got from the Quran, right, but we got all of these signs, right? Now, how about this? Verse 19:19, right? Would you think there's anything significant about that verse in the Quran, right? Because what's interesting is, if you look at the grammatical value of verse 19:19, it has a grammatical value of 1990, and it has 31 letters. And it just so happens, as we talked about, that Rashad died on the 31st day of 1990. So chapter 19 of the Quran has a lot of these things that is related to Rashad's life and death. And if you remember, God says in the Quran that God controls life and death, that nobody dies except by God's leave at a predetermined time. So we know that God did this, that God allowed these initials in chapter 19 to have 798, and to have Rashad live 19,798, so 19798, right? So we see that God is the one that did that, right? And not only that, we have the root of Rashad's name being in the Quran exactly 19 times, and the only two mentions of the actual full name Rashad is in between a very significant context, right? Where dead set in the middle, God is rebuking people, he's warning people against thinking the previous messenger was the last messenger. Right? So he's rebuking them. He's saying, I hate this. Don't do this. This is a trait that is most abhorred by God, right? God, and then it even warns you, God seals the heart of those people, right? So this is a trait that is hated by God, right? To think the previous messenger was the last messenger, right? And it's right in the middle. It's right in the middle of the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, right? And all in the same context. It's a believing Egyptian talking about killing a man just for saying, my Lord is God, and showing you clear proofs. And he comes out of nowhere as if mirroring Rashad, right? As if saying, follow me, like as if he's a messenger, and I will guide you in the right way. And then we have Surah 72.
If I may interrupt.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
McLincoln, when you say it's right in the middle, can you specify whether there's any other verses that separate them, or are we talking exact? I'm not ascertaining that.
There's 4 verses here. So here's verse 40-34, right? So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the second mention of Rashad, right? So here's verse 40-34. 1, 2, 3, or maybe I'm missing this out here. 40-29. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 verses between, right? How did he say this? The Jews refused to believe the Messiah, and the majority of them. It is nowhere that we find the name Rashad 4 verses ahead of the injunction of saying the last messenger, and also 4 verses ahead of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess this one's here, Rashad here. But regardless, the only 2 mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, right? The only 2 mentions in the entire Quran, right, is in between this context here, where God says that he hates people who think the previous messenger was the last messenger, right? Do you understand the significance here?
There are 9 verses, and the 5th one is the one that we're talking about. Is that how that's in the middle?
No. So so the only thing that really matters here is the only 2 mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran is in between this context, right? You know what I mean? It's in between this context, and it's in between a place where it says God, God hates it when people think the previous messenger is the last messenger. It's in between that very significant context. Do you kind of get what we're saying?
Okay.
So hold on. The only 2 mentions of Rashad is in this very significant context.
Yeah, back to the mosque. Apparently, it might have been built 1919. I'd read as well.
Yeah. How did you?
I don't know if that can be verified.
Yeah. How did you know? Yeah, it was. Hold on.
I've been doing some digging.
I'm gonna try to find the article that talks about it, but yeah, as far as I know, it was also built in 1919. Yeah.
Really, I did not know that.
Do we have the exact day or year that the highway was built out of curiosity, or completed rather?
Yeah. Hold on. Just give me 1 second. Let me just take this one at a time. Well, at least according to this news article, it was built in 1919 by Henry Gestad. Very interesting. So I actually have this here somewhere. Give me 1 second. About the highway being built. It's going to be under Math Miracle. I talked about it before. Let me see here. Okay, so we see here that Rashad moved to the United States in 1959, right, to get a master's degree in Tucson, right? What's interesting is this highway, Interstate 19, which is the only Interstate 19, was built, hold on. Okay, here it is. It was built in 1962. Do you see that? And by the way, Rashad discovered code 19 in 1974. So this was even before he knew anything about 19, by the way, as well. So he moved there in 1950 something. What was it? 1959, and the highway was built like 5 years later, right? And he didn't even discover code 19 until 1974. Mona, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, Fatima, and everybody else. What do you guys want to say about this?
Oh, Miss Fatima, I'll let you go first.
I'm absorbing it all. Subhanallah, like just seeing all of it, especially the verses at the end that you started off with. That was amazing. Honestly, I'm still pretty speechless. It'll take me a little bit to digest, but thank you for the thorough walkthrough of all of this.
Yeah, praise God. And it's interesting that the only no, well, yeah, technically, yeah, I guess.
But,
wait, hold on. So do we make clear that his birthday, I believe it's the only year that is the 19th, and it's also a multiple of 19, or one of the only? I forgot what that was.
Saram said it here. November 19 is the only day of the year that's also a multiple of 19.
Wait, what?
So like if you count
it's only 19. Like
January 19, February 19, and all of that, November 19 is the 323rd day. So it's the only day that is a 19th of a month that's also a multiple of 19.
What's chapter 1917 out of interest?
19 what?
What's chapter 1917 out of interest?
No, 1919 of all verses.
1919.
Yeah, it has a geometrical value
let's
of
talk about
1990, and it has 31 headers, and that's also today that Rashad left.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. But the 1917, what's that chapter and verse?
Where are you getting 1917
Wait, where
from?
is 17 coming from?
19 times 17 at the bottom, the 323rd day.
Oh, no,
okay.
that's just the no, that's just a multiple of 19. So ready? Right, so
Can we visit chapter 19, verse 17?
No. It's just saying that 323 is a multiple of 19. That's all it's saying.
It's 323 is a multiple of 19, while also being the only day of that year that is also the 19th of that month.
McLincoln, Mick Lincoln, she just wants to read the verse, what it says.
It's in the chat. It's in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat. Now, I did want to mention, all the hints in the Quran. It's startling because you either have to say that God is trying to guide you through those hints, or the second option is that we're not supposed to be guided by that at all, or the third option is that Satan is using a lot of hints from the Quran to mislead us.
But AAA, but hold on, it can't be Satan because Satan did not author the Quran. We know God did this, so this is what God put in His own Quran, right? Number two, God controls. Well, hold on, let me just answer them. I know that they're not your positions, but number two, God controls life and death. So the number of days Rashad lived, and the initial count in the only chapter 19 and the one with the most initials, right? All of that is what God did, right? And the most important thing here is what kind of Satan. His whole purpose is to make you put God at the center of your life and worship God alone, and don't call on anybody except God, and dedicate your entire life to God and see God's kingship over you alone, right? What kind of Satan would do that? What kind of stupid Satan would do that? Right?
Yeah.
So would God be intentionally misleading us, or is He intentionally trying to guide us through all these hints?
Hold on. Is there any precedent in the Quran of God giving people signs and people are not supposed to follow those signs?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there's not. Anytime God gives a sign and a message, and that message is preaching God alone, all the time in the Quran, the requirement is to worship God alone and follow that messenger, right? Always. There's no exception to that.
Alhamdulillah.
So
Can
now,
you repeat again that last bit you mentioned about why it can't be Satan?
Yeah, so it's God's Quran that has these miracles, right? So Satan did not author the Quran, unless you believe he authored the Quran, but he did not. In our belief, he did not author the Quran, right? So that's number one, right? The second thing is God controls life and death, and the amount of days Rashad lived and its correlation with the Quran, it's only from God, right? And the third thing is anybody who tells you, hey, come worship God alone, dedicate your entire life to God, remember God all the time. In fact, your God is whatever occupies your mind the most, so you have to make sure God occupies your mind the most and to seek God's kingship over you. A person who is so devoted and focused on God with no partners, right, and who's so against Satan, right, that message by itself is clearly it's clearly the right message. It's not a message that Satan would want you to follow, right?
So, wait, Mr. McLincoln, I believe you did answer Mona, but I think there was the part that she really wants to hone in on was the idea that, so she wants to make sure that this is not Satan misguiding us. And the thing is, the point that you made that you inserted within all your words was that since he decreased time in the life, the point where you live and die, that means Satan did not determine when Rashad died. That means God had intentionally had him die at that time. And that would confirm the 798 count of Surah 19. So if you're going to try to claim that all these signs are Satan's mechanisms, well, God had to work with Satan on that point, right? Basically, since God is the one who determines when Rashad dies, making him die at that specific moment to make us see the 1978 correlation. If you're going to claim that all the other hints are from Satan, this one specifically had to come from God. And so if you're going to claim the other messages are Satan misleading us, and then God had to work with the devil on the death date of Rashad to make it go along with
And
Satan's
guys, and I also want to emphasize, because this here is actually bigger than you think. Again, it talks about God giving things to messengers in the context of numbers. He counted the numbers of all the things that the messengers have. Think about it, guys. The numbers. What is Rashad's entire thing? It's all about numbers in Code 19. God is connecting messengers getting things to him counting the numbers of the things they have, right? And the geometrical value of only to a messenger that he chooses is 1919, and God counted that too because God says he counted the numbers of all things. So God knows that the geometrical value of only to a messenger that he chooses is 1919. And then there's also khalfihi rasada, all in the same context. All in the same context. It's basically Prashad, numbers, messenger. Again, Prashad, numbers, messenger. All in the same context, right? And then it's not just Rashad, it's Khalifa Rashad. Rashad Khalifa, messengers, numbers, right? And then if you add the, 7 plus 2 plus 2 plus 8 is 19. And if you go to verse 19, it's basically talking about what did Rashad really teach? The whole point was, hey, I don't, these traditional Muslims, they want to add somebody else, right? But all Rashad taught, hey, stop that. I just want you to worship God alone and call on Him alone, and don't add anybody else, right? The focus of the entire religion is to God, right? The places of worship belong to God. Don't call on anybody else. And then when God's servant advocated Him alone, almost all of them banded together to oppose Him. And look at that, it's verse 19. And it even adds up to 19. It's just, there's so much in this one context. You know what I mean?
Question.
Yeah.
Those last three verses, 26, 27, 28, you're mentioning, right? With the correlation and whatnot.
Yeah.
How are they being understood or interpreted by mainstream traditionalism? Do we have an understanding of that?
I think as far as I've been reading about what they say, they basically just say like what you're reading here is that God knows the future. He doesn't reveal the future to anybody. I mean, if you read any other translation, it's basically the same thing. All we're seeing though is we're seeing, God counting the number of things the messengers have, right? And we see a word that sounds like khalfihi rasada and the connection with messengers, right?
So how would they interpret the number of all things? I mean, other than, I guess, biology and pairs and whatnot, that could be the reference, right, in the nature and evolution of all things. But it would seem kind of out of context unless they can string together a logical argument like the one you've been able to do to support this.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Would anybody else like to answer that?
Wait, so are you asking how did other translators interpret this verse where God keeps the count of all things?
Yes.
We don't know about them even doing that. We don't know.
So I'm looking it up right now to see how other translators translated this verse. I'll put it in the chat. But basically, they're saying, I'm in the wrong surah. They're basically saying that first off, the statement that God keeps track of all things, no one's going to deny that just because we already know God is omniscient. Of course, He keeps track of all things, right? But the fact that God mentions it in such a way at this point in time is significant. And I found it, and I'm going to put their other interpretation there, so that it's not just Rashad's. Here's like 4 different interpretations, and keeps account of everything. He takes account of everything. He keepeth count of all things. He takes account of every single thing. And then if you look up there, you see that He takes account of all things in number. Like the word number is right there. I don't know how to read that. I did. But it's number, right? So he makes a specific mention of number here. And this is the same verse where you have digits.
Mona, yeah. So if you can see my screen, the Arabic here says addadan, which means number in Arabic.
I understand that. I'm just curious, you guys have been able to paint a very coherent, systematic approach to how these 3 verses all correlate. What's the counter-argument to that in the traditional realm? That's all.
Well, if you consider the traditional people existed long before Rashad did, right? So they're not going to say anything specific about it. They're just going to say what the verse says, that God knows the number of everything. There's no, I think you're thinking that, hey, what do they say about this with regards to Rashad? I'm not even sure if they know about this.
In the greater context of the theme of the chapter, though, and the surah and the verse that supersedes it and follows it, though, Can we take a look at that real quick?
So just look at
Yeah,
the,
AAA. Can you take a look at that? I'm not really sure what.
All right, so I'm going to just go through it by mouth. Say, no one can protect me from God, nor can I find any. So there's a little bit of a... Oh, you want to see the tafsirs of this surah?
I mean, I'm not really sure what the
No,
relevance
just
is
the
of what those
subsequent
people
verses.
think, but let's see. Where's Surah Jinn?
72, I think. So it would be...
Yeah, it's not numbered. Oh, here it is. Okay.
There it is.
So let's see what Ibn Kathir, which is one of the more popular ones, said about it. Okay. So, verily Allah knows those who believe and He knows the hypocrites. It should be added that these examples that from Allah's knowledge is that He knows all things before they occur, and this is something definite and certain. Therefore, He says after this, and He surrounds all of that which is with them, and He keeps count of all things. This is the end of Surah Al-Jinn, all praise and thanks due to God. So, this is what we'd expect. They just repeat the claim that God knows the count of all things, right?
They don't read it. They don't read into it, Miss Mona. And honestly, I don't think they really had to read into it until this point in time. That's the thing, because Muhammad is the one was the one who delivered the Quran. There's no reason to keep track of all the things surrounding Muhammad at that time, because this is the miracle at that time. Now, if we want to prove that the next messenger after him is a true messenger, can we showcase how God kept track of all the things around Rashad, or whoever that is claiming messengership? Because here in this verse, it's indicating that around the messengers, God keeps count of all things. Right? And only in this day of the information age can we actually see this through our own eyes, because we actually also have been keeping track of all things regarding people, right?
Brilliant. Yep. No, I'm following perfect, and that really helped. Thank you.
And it's I think
But
just
Mona, just take the hints, right? It says God counted the number of all things, and only to a measure He chooses has a geometrical value of 1919, right? And then it talks about messengers, it talks about numbers, and it has a geometrical value of 1919, and it uses the word khalfihi, rusted out, all in the same context. Take the hint, you know.
Now, can we note a couple additional things about this chapter? So, chapter 72 contains the most instances of Rashada in it, of all the chapters. It has 4. We said there's 19 total in the entire Quran. This chapter alone contains 4 instances. This is the chapter that Rashad talks about being in reference to Masjid Tucson. And also, this is the chapter where verse 19 talks about God's servant advocating Him alone, and almost everyone banding together to oppose Him.
And it's verse 19, guys. By the way, it's verse 19. By the way,
it's verse 19, right? And now, what's interesting is also verse 18. It says, "The places of worship belong to God. Do not call on anyone else beside God." Isn't it interesting? At the time, the only masjid on earth that's devoted to God alone is Masjid Tucson, and Rashad is claiming that this surah is talking about Masjid Tucson with the jinns. Now, what's also interesting is from the beginning of the Quran until this verse 27, which references what the messenger that's chosen, the number of verses, it's 5,472. And get this, which is 19, get this, times 72, which is the chapter number, times 4, which is the 4 times that Rashad is mentioned. Not only is it multiple 19. Yeah, what's that?
You might want to type that out to visualize.
I did. I did. I put it in the chat.
My bad.
It's there in the bold. So Rashad occurs in this chapter 4 times. This is chapter 72. Number of the verses from the beginning of the Quran all the way to this verse is 5,472, which is 19. It's a multiple 19. It's 19 times 72, chapter number, times 4, which is the number of times Rashada occurs. Additionally, if you take Rashada and you add the verse numbers, you get, 532, which is 19 times 28, which is also the number of verses are here. But also, if you just take again, just take Rashad Khalifa, chapter number, verse number, you get another multiple of 19. And of course, we already said the digits they add up to 19, and the value of the expression only to a messenger that he chooses has a value of 1919. So
that's very compelling, but may I add something else that's quite interesting? All of this is coming out of a chapter titled a Jinn. Why, with Allah's infinite mercy and wisdom, would he not include it as chapter 74, which is the one about the hidden secret, hypothetically?
So, Mona, chapter 74...
How do we reconcile that?
Chapter 74 has a very interesting thing here, right? Because it talks about the number, again, at that home of angels being 19, is going to increase the faith of the faithful, right? So I wanted to ask you, Mona, did you increase in faith after learning hell has 19 angels instead of 17 or 16 or 18?
Absolutely not, but I think
but Mona, who increased in faith though? It's us, it's the submitters, right? So this verse is defining us as the believers. Isn't that interesting?
And can I just mention that chapter 74 has its own codes, but chapter 72 is the jinns, and these are the good jinns that heard a wonderful Quran.
Yeah, you have to also read the context.
Yeah. So these are a group of jinns that are listening Master Tucson when Rashad's reciting the verses, and they say, we have heard a wonderful Quran. It guides to righteousness, and we have believed in it. We will never set up any idols besides our Lord.
Yeah, don't assume jinn are bad. I think that might be the disconnect, because you just assume they're bad. They're not bad. They're like humans.
And by the way, verse 7 is really interesting. This is what the jinns are saying about Rashad. They said they thought, just like you thought, that God would not send another messenger. And if you ask any Muslim on the street, they'll tell you God's not going to send another messenger. Muhammad is the final messenger. But we already have precedent in the Quran telling us that God is going to send more messengers. Chapter 7, verse 35. It says, O children of Adam, when messengers, plural, rusulan, when messengers come to you from among you and recite my revelations to you, those who take heed and lead a righteous life will have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. The messenger in chapter 72 is reciting the Quran.
Mona and Fatima, and this is mostly for Fatima, I want to emphasize one thing here about chapter 381, because what's interesting about this verse here is it sets a precedent, right? Because, what it basically says is God took a covenant from the prophets, saying, I will give you the scripture and wisdom. Afterwards, a messenger will come to confirm, what you have, right? What's interesting is we know Prophet Muhammad is a prophet, right? So the simplest reading of this verse is God took a covenant from the prophets, and that obviously includes Muhammad, who is a prophet. And then it said afterwards a messenger will come to confirm the scriptures that you have, right? What's interesting about this, though, is not only do we have this verse, but we also have a precedent discussed in the Quran, right? Moses got the Torah. Okay, good, right? Jesus came, right? And Jesus confirmed the Torah. Okay, good. Jesus came with the Gospels. Okay, excellent. Okay, Muhammad confirmed the Gospels. Good. Okay, Muhammad came with the Quran. Right. Okay. Now, who confirmed the Quran? Right. So, this verse is setting up a precedent, and we can deduce from this verse that hey, all the other scriptures were confirmed except the Quran. The Quran was not confirmed yet. So, who confirmed the Quran? Right.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. He shows the pattern, and someone comes after confirms the previous. And that's what the messenger of the covenant is. And that's why the Quran was the final message, and the prophet was the final prophet, but he was not the final messenger.
And look at God's response, right, to people who said the previous messenger was the last messenger. How did God respond to this? Like, take the hint, right? God thus sends astray those who are transgressors, doubtful. They argue against God's revelations. This is a trait that is most hated by God, right? So how does God respond to people thinking the priest messenger is the last messenger? What is the giant hint here? And this is in between the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran. Take the hint, you know what I mean?
Can we emphasize the Egyptian man? The non-Moses Egyptian man urging people to follow him. He's going to show them the right way. Who is this guy?
Yeah, and why is he
Is it
speaking
not-
with
is it not
authority
strange?
as if he's a messenger? Like,
Yeah.
it's just a weird turn of events in the context. Like, this guy comes out of nowhere,
Nope.
starts acting like a messenger. Who is this guy?
Isn't that interesting, Mona? You got an Egyptian guy between Rashad's name and where it says that Joseph is not the last messenger. This guy's saying, follow me as an Egyptian man and I'll show you the right path.
Can we open another translation for 4038 just to confirm for me, please?
I got you.
Load it up.
I got it. But I also thought it's hilarious because he's right there. God describes him as a believing man, although Moses is right there, who's the messenger that everyone's supposed to be following, and yet this guy's coming out of nowhere and saying, hey, by the way, follow me because I'm a believing man as well.
And the last word is Rashad.
It's a believing man.
This isn't entirely coincidental in my opinion, because it opens the room for this argument that you're painting very deliberately in the way that God's designed the verse.
Well, yeah, that's what God did. I mean, think about it this way. This is God's Quran, right? Right? A messenger comes out of nowhere and discovers code 19 and all these things and starts saying all these things, right? And we have all these other indications of his life and death and multiple of 19. He was a messenger for 19 years. The words of his name was in the Quran 19 times. He lived 19,798 days in chapter 19, which has the most code 19 initials, has 798, all of those, right? And then between the only two mentions of Rashad in the entire Quran, God warns you against, believing the previous messenger is the last messenger, right? When you put it all together, right, at that point, you're like, okay, God is clearly given so many red flags and arrows pointing to this guy, Rashad. What's going on here? Maybe he's just a messenger.
Have you considered what the punishment would be for us if we were wrong?
Have you considered what the punishment would be, though, if you reject God's messenger?
So I wanted to talk about this, peace be upon you, everyone, that there's no part in the Quran which actually condemns people for following a false messenger, because it already knows how difficult it is for people to believe in a messenger when they come. But what is the worst thing that could happen if he's not a messenger? After all we're doing, saying just let's get rid of this shirk and worship God alone. That's the core of the message. You're not committing any shirk. The only unforgivable sin is shirk. So I would say that if you reject a messenger, it's far worse than it is to accept a false messenger, given as long as you're not committing shirk, obviously, and going around and killing people. I don't know what's so wrong with the core message of submission that many people oppose it, right? All we're telling you is that worship God alone, and not only that, but we have proof, code 19, for our religion, unlike any other religion. And
Night Angel. Oh, good.
That's it. Thank you.
No, Night Angel. Thank you so much. That's a really good point. Night Angel asked a question. Where's the Egyptian man? So in 4041, the subtitle is "The Believing Egyptian Debate with His People." So this he's talking to his people.
Just read verse 4028, right? It's a believing man from among Pharaoh's people, Egyptian.
Yeah. Well, and also in 41, he says, "Oh my people." So he's referring to his own people, the Egyptians. And look what he says. He says, "Oh my people, while I invite you to be saved, you invite me to hellfire. You invite me to be unappreciative of God and to set up beside Him idols that I do not recognize. I am inviting you to the Almighty, the Forgiver." 43. There is no doubt that what you invite me to has no basis in this world, nor in the hereafter. That our ultimate return is to God, and that the transgressors have incurred the hellfire. Look at this, 44. Someday you will remember what I am telling you now.
Someday.
I leave the judgment. Yeah, someday you'll remember what I'm telling you now. I leave the judgment of this matter to God. God is the seer of all the people. Wow.
It's already pointing to the future. Oh my God.
Miss Mona, just to reiterate on your question, 4028 is where God is letting you know that if he is lying to you, if Rashad is lying to you, then it's going to be a problem for him. But if he is truthful, you're only benefiting from his teachings, right? So if you believe his teachings are already to be true, then you have no problem listening to them.
Let me read it. 4-28. God does not guide the liars. A believing man among Pharaoh's people who was concealing his belief. Isn't that interesting? Rashad concealed his messengership for 8 years.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very good point. Wow.
Concealing his belief. Said, how can you kill a man? Okay, and that's what happened to Rashad. He was killed just for saying, my Lord is God, and has shown you clear proofs from your Lord. If he is a liar, that is his problem. And if he is truthful, you benefit from his promises. Surely God does not guide any transgressor, liar. Wow.
The best answer, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can breathe easy. That's what God is saying.
Can I say something about the promises that he comes with potentially, right? And how that might potentially be a form of shirk, in the sense of God says that none knows the hour but he, and Rashad predicts a year to the end of the world. Now, I haven't dived in too deep about what other predictions and translations and interpretations Rashad has made, but I'm questioning just that as an example, if that makes sense.
Let me address this. Hold on. Hold on 1 second.
I know.
In the chapter we read, okay, chapter 72, this whole discussion was about chapter 72, right? Look what it says. In chapter 72, verse 26, I put it in the chat, and 27, McClinton, go on it, please, if everyone's on your screen. It says, he is the knower of the future. He does not reveal the future to anyone. Next verse. Only to a messenger that he chooses does he reveal from the past and the future specific news. Only to a messenger that he chooses, not prophet, messenger. And this expression, only to a messenger that he chooses, has a geometrical value of 1919. And this is the chapter where there's the highest frequency of Rashad. We talked about verse 19, all this stuff. This is the chapter. So it's saying regarding the future news, for example, the end of the world, it says only to a messenger that he chooses, 1919, does he reveal from the past and the future specific news. Additionally, let's look at another verse, 7:187. I'm loading it. You can also pull it up. They ask you about the end of the world, the hour, and when it will come to pass. Say, the knowledge thereof is with my Lord. Only he reveals its time. So God can reveal the end of the world and the knowledge of that hour. Again, now let's go 2015. End of the world is not hidden. The hour, end of the world, is surely coming. I will keep it almost hidden. The Arabic word here is akadu. Most translations, they don't even translate the word akadu, which means almost. They just say it's just hidden.
I got it. I'm posting it in the chat.
So think about this. Miss Mona. Right?
Mona, if you see my screen, I also want to show you that this is not just Rashad's thing. Like, here's a website that has nothing to do with submitters. Like, this is just a basic academic Quran website, right? And hold on. It's verse 2015, right? What are you posting?
Keep going down. You're good. Just go down. You're there. Just keep going down. Keep going down.
2015.
There you go. Oh, you went too far. Go up.
2015.
Oh, here it is. I almost hide it. Almost.
I almost hide it. So, Mona, if it's almost hidden, and God says he reveals future information to a messenger, then why would it be...
Isn't this also cool, though, Miss Mona?
There are a couple...
Wait. You're not someone can't ask her this.
You know, I'm stumped on the fact that all of these evidences for this presentation, mostly, to be fair, is coming from a chapter titled Jinn. That's the most irking part for me, I think, at this point.
Miss Mona,
wait,
are you saying
chapter Jinn is not the one that convinced me that he was a messenger. It was actually chapter 40, by the way.
Yeah, I think you miss it. Most of this was from 40, which is Forgiver. The whole Egyptian debate thing was from 40.
If I could say something just really quick, I mean, much I feel like it's a good summary of events. But what I think is fascinating is how is it possible this one guy pieced this stuff together, right? How many people have been conditioned to believe that the end of the world is absolutely hidden, even though the word almost is in the verse, right? That they were deliberately blind from being able to see something so obvious. It's like, this isn't, again, it was funny when it's pointed out, it's like, dude, how did no one else notice this? It's bizarre.
No, I completely agree. I just I don't really know.
But Peter, I think the discovery is that there are many occurrences like that as well. That's not the only one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean?
Yeah, I think she's referring to the fact that she's noticed other verses have also been misinterpreted for the last 1,000 years or so, as well, right, Miss Mona? That's what you meant?
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, like the verse about Solomon with the horses and the corpse on his throne.
But how is it possible this one guy, right? He's not some like eminent scholar, something like that. He's a biochemist by trade. And he's just studying the Quran and he's able to uncover all these facts. Like the simplest one is just the Shahada. Like you do not find a single scholar, anyone saying that, hey guys, why are we saying the Shahada team? Right? It's like these stuff that are so blatantly obvious. It's almost comical once it's revealed.
And look, verse 19 of that chapter is talking about the main thing Rashad did, right? The places of worship belong to God, don't call anybody else. When God's servant advocated for him alone, almost all of them banded together to oppose him. It's literally talking about like the central message of what Rashad was teaching. And it's verse 19 of all verses.
But this is not the only one. So we actually have multiple verse 19s that prophesies Rashad. And every time you add his name to the surah and verse number, it's a multiple of 19. 519 is one. 8119 is one. What, 70... I'm sorry, what is it? 8119, 519, both of those, you add his name, Rashad Khalifa, and the verse surah number, you get multiple of 19. Exact same methodology. And both of them are talking about a messenger that comes. The other two... Yeah, I wanted to read a verse 2454, guys. It says, say, obey God and obey the messenger. If they refuse, then he is responsible for his obligations and you are responsible for your obligations. If you obey him, you will be guided. The sole duty of the messenger is to deliver the message. There was another one that talks about, or I guess we already read about the chapter 41. Is there another one that says something like that, where it's like, if he's wrong or whatever, you don't lose anything or something like that?
Well, I mean, the believing man who's talking to Pharaoh, you lose nothing by listening to him, and then if he's telling the truth, you only benefit, right? So I think that's indicating that even if he ends up not being a messenger, if what he's preaching is truth, then there's nothing to worry about.
Well, this is my whole thing. Is if he's the only religious person on the planet in terms of some kind of capacity to exert his opinion, he's saying La ilaha illallah, or at least the first one to do that. Is not already a very positive sign and proof of his messengership?
Not only that, he basically said that your God is whatever occupies your mind the most. So you have to remember God alone the entirety of your life. You have to seek God's kingship over you. You know what I mean? God has to be the center of your life. You have to stop all forms of idol worship. And he even teaches how subtle idol worship is. The entire teaching of Rashad, right, is so pure. It's just God alone and stop everything else. God alone. Your entire life has to be God alone. It's so pure. You know what I mean? The message itself is so pure.
Exactly. Well, that's my question opposed to Mona, is if he has such a pure message, how can it be from Satan? It's so pure. It's the only one that's just saying, devote yourself absolutely to God alone. Strictest form of monotheism.
Mr. Naveed, I did not know this, but in my mind, I was thinking that if I were in Dr. Rashad's shoes, I would try to convince everyone without claiming messengership and just hope that they listen to reason. right? And then I think he realized, like, you know, he said he hid it for 8 years. I think he realized that he actually has to have the authority to sway others, because people realize that if you're not the messenger, why should they follow you? Why should they listen?
And especially when he's already opened Pandora's box, right? Because he's at the infancy stage of Quranism. At that time, the first most like very extreme fringe thing was like, oh no, it's not 5 prayers, it's 3 prayers. Like, that was insane. And that's just barely opening Pandora's box. We destroyed Hadith. We're going to Quran alone. Now we're opening this can of worms. So it's like, okay, anyone can interpret anything any way they want. So to say that, okay, you just Quran alone, God alone, Quran alone, that's not sufficient. There needs to be that element of authority to solidify the positions he's proposing, to really authenticate and establish the truth against the falsehood. Otherwise, it's just, okay, well, he's saying some nice things, but he doesn't have any authority over me. I can just pick and choose what I like, what I agree with, and that's really the Quranist ideology.
And I think that's what speaks to me. The fact that he did not even want to claim messengership because he thought that was not important. He didn't want to draw eyes on him. He wanted people to just see the right message and to follow it, and he didn't care for the credits, right? If he was hiding it for 8 years, this showcases what his intentions are. When he was forced to announce his messengership, he realized the flaw in his theory, right? It's like, all right, it looks like, you know, being reasonable is not all that is not sufficient. I need to, you know, take my place as what God has appointed me to do, right?
Right, exactly. Makes no sense. But he resisted that for 8 years. Right? He's like, look, I'm just going to go to people, say God alone, Quran alone. Look, reject Hadith. That's it. Just reject Hadith, God alone, Quran alone. You know, just similar concept to all these Quranists we see today. Well, why do we need a messenger? We can all just read the Quran. And it's like, no, you need that authority. You need a definitive answer on these key issues. There's no way around it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a religion. And that's why I promise you there is never going to be a Quranist. I guess the only way a Quranist masjid can be formed is if they claim some messenger and they fall in line because of some messenger they have. But just freestyling, free-form Quranism cannot have any congregation. It's not possible.
No, yeah.
So, but going.
Hey, and AAA, this one's for you. It's more complicated, but I think it's important. I deliberately overlooked it because it's just going to complicate things. But the geometrical value of Rashad Khalifa is 1230. You're aware of that, right?
I am, but pause for a second because your screen's not showing up. Let me leave and come back. All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Before you continue, so we already talked about the number of days he lived was 19,798, which is a multiple of 19, and chapter 19 has 798
initials, and it also has the most initials, and it's in chapter 19 of all chapters with the most initials of 5. 798, and Rashad lived 19,798, just like chapter 19. Very impressive.
Yeah, and then we go to 1919, right? We go to 1919, and what is it? The geometrical value, hold on. Yeah, the geometrical value is 1990, and the number of letters is 31. He was martyred on January 31st, 1990. But separate from that, let's just write the date of death, right? The 31. Hold on, it's blurry. You do that, it becomes blurry. Just remove that. Yeah. 3101, 1990. That's 19 times 1230 times 1327. And 1230 is the initial verse is 19:1. And get this, 1327 initial verse is 1998. The last one. First verse and last verse of this exact chapter.
So and 1230 is not like a random number. It's the geometrical value of Rashad Khalifa, right? So if you get the multiple of the 31st of January 1990, it's 19 times the geometrical value of Rashad Khalifa times the multiplier, right? And the 1230th initial verse is verse 19:1, and the 1327th initial verse is the last verse of chapter 19. So there's a lot. Hold on, it's code 19. Chapter 19 has the most initials of all of them. It has the number of initials corresponding to the number of days Rashad lived, which is a multiple of 19. And there's a bunch of other things in just that one chapter regarding Rashad's life. And we know that God controls life and death, right? So there's a lot that God is pointing to with Rashad here, right?
Yeah.
I think people they may see this, they think, oh, you're just picking patterns that are random. But in reality, if you believe that God knows all things and He does everything with intent and design, then you can no longer claim that it's random. God already knows what you're seeing and what you would see. Right? So you need to understand that just
God has counted the number of all things, as we say.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so these patterns are not arbitrary.
There's so much, man. There's just so much. It's overwhelming. You know, we talk about verse 381. 381 is talking about the messenger of the covenant, right? Talks about the messenger that's coming. You add Rashad Khalifa plus the Surah verse number, it's a multiple of 19. The geometrical value of that ayah is a multiple of 19, right? 13,148, 19,692. And then just look at the expression in the... Get this. This is actually kind of cool, guys. Look at this. If you look at the portion of the verse in 381, which refers to the messenger of the covenant, it says, the messenger will come to you confirming what you have, right? Was it Ja'akum Rasulun Musaddiqun Lema Ma'akum. Okay? This expression has a value of 836, which is 19 times 44. These are not just arbitrary things. These are key aspects of the expressions in the verses that talking about the messenger of the covenant. And, you know, I feel like we get caught up in these suspected, you know, there's that jobs like analysis and stuff. It's like we lose sight of the big picture. It's like, these are significant. They try to downgrade and say, oh, we already refuted appendix 2. It's like, no, you didn't. You know what I mean?
Well, so
what do you think about this?
So I want to let people know. So just so you don't think these numbers are being random, there's only a few ways to count things in the Quran. We got surah count, we got verse count, we got word count, we got letter count, and we have abjad count, the geometrical value, right? And so these are, I don't think, we don't have more ways than that for counting with regards to the Quran, correct?
I mean, it's just letters. Yeah, so it's basically letters, surahs, verse numbers, abjad. Yeah, pretty much. That's it.
Yeah, and so like we're not reaching for a million different sorts of patterns here. We got a finite number of things to work with, and we're seeing these patterns pop up all within each of these categories. And if God knows everything and He keeps track of all things, then we can't say that this word count is just arbitrary, or this word count is unimportant or unintentional. God knows what we're looking for, and He has designed for us to find things in certain places.
What is the so 381 is the most important verse when it comes to messenger of the covenant, right? What does it say? 381, God took a covenant from the prophet saying, I will give you the scripture and wisdom. Afterwards, a messenger will come to confirm all existing scripture. You shall believe in him and support him. He said, do you agree with this and pledge to fulfill this covenant? They said, we agree. He said, you have thus borne witness, and I bear witness along with you. And this is the expression I said, where it says, a messenger will come to you confirming all the existing scriptures. That's a multiple of 19. And you add, just like we're doing with the other ones, Rashad Khalifa plus the first number, you get a multiple of 19 as well.
It's compelling.
Hey guys, I wanted to add something that Hassan just showed me right now, right? So there are 10 chapters with the with these mysterious initials, right? And from the first initial, which is in chapter 2:1, to chapter 19 of all verses, there are 1230 verses, which is the geometrical value of Rashad Khalifa. Again, chapter 19 again. Very interesting, right? And then, so here he is, where he did the math, right? And then chapter 19, as we talked about, has the most initials, and if you add them up, Rashad lives 19,798, just like the number of initials in chapter 19.
Yeah.
Did we also mention that we said that there's, I didn't know about this, so the four
Bro,
verses,
the highway is off of Highway 19. It's the only highway, like, come on, what is going on here?
That is the only
Wait, can you show the image? Wait, McClinton,
it ends in 19.
Image?
Yeah, what's up?
Wait. Can you just show the image for the highway stuff?
I'm showing it right here.
No. There's like a little black box that you have all this information. I don't think Simona saw that box thing.
Oh yeah. So I just searched my name in Math Miracle. Let's see.
Is it? Can you pin it there or something?
When you guys are ready, any questions?
Oh wow! I just want you to see this one thing, guys. Yeah, put that in the chat. Wait, put that in the chat. No. Hold on, that table you made.
What table are we talking about?
Bro, there's a little. It's not a table. It's like a little, like a little image you made that has all the information.
His here?
About that thing.
I'm here.
Yeah, what's up?
Did you know that the phone number
Wait,
of
his
Mr.
thing here?
Is the
Yeah, it is. No, Clinton, there's an image you made. Yeah, we know about the phone number. So get this, it's the phone number, zip code, address, highway, all of it from every direction. It's a multiple of 90. Like, it's crazy. I think it's like it's the only one thing was it's the only zip code that's like a 19 at the end or something something. I don't know. I forgot. McClinkin, you're forgetting it. The little box you had that had all the facts about it. You had a bunch of them. Or maybe Peter has it. I don't know, man. One of you two had it. Come on, guys.
Did I present it today?
Yeah, no, you didn't present it today. It's a little box, the black box thing that has all the things in it. Dagnab it. Where's the... Where do you have it? Let's see. Let me just search highway. I'll try to find it, God willing. Alright, go ahead, Sister Mona.
Naveed, is it this thing here?
This is it. Yeah. Is that it? Yeah, that's the one. There was another one too, but yeah, did you show this to Mona?
No, but it's just the things we talked about.
Yeah, I just wanted to see it in a visual format.
I've seen that independently. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Mona. What was the thing you're going to say? Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
so there's four things. One, if the age, when Rashad was born, falls on the 18th and not the 19th, how much of a difference do you feel that makes?
So let's try it out, right? So let's change this to the 18th, right? So the idea, so like one way that we're gonna have to understand is, do you see this checkbox right here?
Yeah.
So it depends. So like with any number, like hold on, with any number, we have to either choose to include the end date or not, right? So if we change it to the 18th, right, but we don't include the end date, it's still 90,798.
So, God's not letting you weasel your way out, Miss Mona.
Wait. Hold on a second. I found what I wanted to present. It was actually separate. So this is more information. McClinkin, save this, please. Save both of these. Okay. Tucson's zip code number is 57. Mashit Tucson's zone number is 19. Mashit Tucson's land parcel number is 114. The Mashit was built in 1919. There you go. And the highway is... Oh, here it is. Check this. The only highway in the USA with the metric system connecting Tucson to Nogales is Highway 19. The only highway in the entire United States.
With the metric system.
Yeah.
Is there how many non-metric system 19s do we got? I mean, that's just a passive question. It's not important.
The metric system part it's not like I think it's just an indicator that there's something special about that highway. I think that's all.
Hey, look at this. There's like an article. This is the only highway in the entire United States where it uses the metric system. Isn't that weird? Like the highway signs. Look, I put an image. It says 500 meters, and this exit 95, 19 times 5. Is that not cool?
What?
It's the only one. Why? It's Highway 19. It's the only outlier out of all the. I don't know if it's hundreds or that whatever number of. It's the only highway.
Why? What's the explanation from the Americans?
Well, no, it had to be a mistake, right? On their part, it would be a mistake. Like, oh, we should have used miles or the our system. Why did we accidentally use meters? Oh well, whatever. We don't want to make another sign. Here you go. Okay, this is how God.
No.
Oh, wait,
Here,
So
so this is
what is it, Miss Mona?
here.
I said
Giving
to
it
attract
to
Australians to play with our heads
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Yeah, here, I got it for you. I got the answer for you. So, basically, Interstate 19, which was first opened to traffic in 1962 but not fully completed until 1975, was chosen by the Metric Board to be the first highway with only metric signage as a pilot project for converting all of U.S. interstate systems to the metric system, but they just never did it. So,
Guys. No. This is in reference to, oh God, this is in reference to maybe opening up the message globally, because the metric system is overwhelmingly used globally over the
Right,
over yours.
and separate from
Oh
that.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And separate from that, it's the only highway in the entire United States that is distinct in this way. This tells us there's something about this.
Yeah, it's the only
terms
one.
of
Like
God's
I always
message.
wondered like why God did that, but it seems what Mona just presented was a really, really good point.
But isn't this crazy? The only outlier in the whole country out of this strange like pilot program, which never got anywhere, is Highway 19.
But it's funny because
no, it's not strange. It makes sense.
It does make sense, according to Miss Mona, because this road was supposed to be the pilot for converting the entire system of like the entire interstate system of the United States to something else, right? So maybe that is like God's way of showcasing the beginning point, the starting point of a change. Is that what you're trying to say, Miss Mona?
Well, there's that. It's the fact that it signifies that RK's message is one of universal, right? We're moving away from just this old traditional mindset that you have to learn Arabic to know the Quran, you need tafsir, you need hadith, moving away from all of that. And really what he's done is open up the realm that the message becomes universal and for everybody, how it was originally intended, and a question mark I've long had. Do you know what I mean? Of how is traditional Islam today really addressing the masses for all of eternity in the way that it's being delivered, and it wasn't, in my opinion. But the way this is done now is a little bit different. So I don't think it's by coincidence, this metric thing, that just adds a little bit more confusion to my plate.
Hey, Fatima, how are you doing, Fatima? I know that we haven't been talking with you that much, but do you have any questions? How are you feeling?
Well, I do have to hop off here shortly, but I did want to acknowledge you, McLennan, for just walking me through this and really just offering so much insight on this. My confusion originally was, growing up, my mother did mention to me that there was a messenger that would come after the prophet. So I knew that coming into this, and it was just a matter of getting confirmation of the name Rashad Khalifa, and to be able to see that within the Quran. That was, one, amazing, and two, just gives me the reassurance that I needed. So this did it for me, and I just want to take time to just really absorb it. I'll offer my feedback and everything at a later time, but I just want to acknowledge you for walking us through that, and for the rest of you for contributing.
Praise God. God bless
God bless you. Thanks for being here. God bless you. Thank you so much, McLincoln. Praise God.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McLincoln. Thank you, Miss Fatima. It's great to hear that. And Mr. McLincoln, you're real. You get those Hassans, right? You're gonna charge God when you see him.
Man, I remember the first time and the second time I showed this to you and Hoshi, and it never gets old. Praise God.
Bro, I mean, he's competing with killing a salamander. If you kill in one strike, you automatically get 70 credits.
Wait, is that a hadith?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
A headshot gives 70 instant credits.
I feel like I missed something so epic right now.
Oh, you missed so much, Sophia. It's so epic. Your entire faith and submission would be renewed today if you witnessed what we saw here.
I know.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Gosh, I'm like kicking myself right now. Like, was the dishes really that important? God.
We recorded it, by the way, so we can just send it to you if you really want to go through it.
Oh, yes, that would be great. That would be so great. And also, I hear that he's like the second or third time he's doing it. So, God willing, as we grow, we'll be seeing more and more of this, and all of us can learn and contribute, and it's amazing. I mean, I'm really bummed I missed this.
This presentation is guaranteed to convert any sincere truth seeker.
Well, don't say any. Maybe people.
Can you send it to me? I don't know how, but can someone?
Yeah, God willing. The problem is it's already like 7 gigabytes.
Oh wow!
You can edit it when you want. Mr.
Yeah.
Just,
a long.
God willing, your laziness is cured.
Just mail her your hard drive, bro.
I might just have to cut out like the discussion part and just keep the part where I talk about it, you know?
That's fine.
No, because we covered so much good stuff in the discussion portion, actually.
Yeah, I don't think I can send 7 gigabytes on Discord.
No, you just upload it to a website and then you give her the link. That's it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, that does work. Yeah, you can do that.
Thank you.
But you know who else missed out on this? Like big time.
Sajjad.
Because brother Sajjad, because he's really been extremely critical of Appendix 2, and I just feel like a lot of it's just exaggerated, unjustified criticism. I really wanted him to face the facts on this.
I'm gonna see Appendix 2. I wanna.
So the idea with Appendix 2 is it's supposed to be something that you're like, oh, that's cool, right? Like it's like it's supposed to be something that confirms what you already know, not something that brings you to the belief, right?
Right.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm just looking over it in light of everything we talked about tonight. I was just going through some of the each of the items, the numbered items, and it's like they're pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Let's say you're skeptical about Appendix 2. Let's say you throw it out. How about Appendix 1, 3, 4, 5, 6? Are those okay? Are you good?
How
with
about
them?
all the other things that we witnessed though? Because look, here's the problem. When you witness a miracle from God, right? At that point, what you say, okay, any alleged claims to mistakes, right? You're gonna have to be like, you know what? I'm still gonna withhold judgment that this is false because I've seen enough already. I've seen too much. I'm just gonna wait and see. I'm gonna try to see if there's if there's an explanation for it, right? Rather than rejecting and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people are like, oh, I think Malam is 2 words. You know what I mean? And that disproves Rashad's a messenger. Like, you can't do that. You have to really think about what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
But that's the other piece. It's like Mr. AAA. It's like Rashad has such solid positions on these various topics, right? His reasoning for why God sent the Quran in Arabic, his explanation of the end of the world, his sequence of events relating to the Great Feud, his explanation on, all these variety of topics, they're so on point. How can this person not be a messenger? You know what I mean? Like, everything checks out, like, to the T. It's just, squeaky clean.
Look, the fact that Rashad is preaching truth that I believe in, like the message that he holds is something I believe in. I see no problem with following his instruction because I don't either I follow his instructions.
Oh, guys,
up,
hey guys,
right?
I forgot some other things. I'm sorry. There's more things that I probably should have mentioned as well.
Yes, go.
Okay, so do you see how the geometrical value of Rashad is 1230, right? And the date of his death is a multiple of 19 with a multiplier of his geometrical value and that, right? If you add these together here, let's just do it. It's 19, correct?
Wow.
And if you add the digits of the rest of it, it's 29. Aren't these two numbers always popping up over and over again? 19, 29, as we talked about before.
Wow.
Right? Let's see what else I missed. I mean, these are just like tiny things compared to the big things we talked about here. But you know how 19. Oh yeah, so Rashad was stabbed 29 times, and there's 29 initial, verses with code 19. He was born on the 19th, so like it's just, like we talked about so much, but like where do we even begin it, like to kind of repeat the stuff again? You know what I mean?
You guys covered. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I talk a lot. You go.
We love to hear. What's it called? What was I gonna say? You guys covered his name like geometrically in the book, like where.
Yeah, we got all that. We got all of that. Sister Sophia.
So good. So I really want. Please, Navid or anyone who has just please message me if it's happening again or whenever this is happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I really want to understand. I want to understand that part really better. Like, every time
I have to admit, the first time I went over this with AAA, it was the best time. I had more energy. It's when AAA was kind of responding back, right? It was the best one, and I didn't record it. The second time was with Hoshi and AAA. It was also good. It was better than this one. I missed it again, but praise God, I recorded this one.
Alhamdulillah.
Bless you, brother.
I do want to maybe try to ease your heart with the chapter about the jinn. When a jinn turns away from God, it becomes a devil or a shaitan, from my understanding, right? But in Surah 72, when it talks about the jinn, we're talking about good jinn who have
in fact, there's no bad jinn ever mentioned here. All of these jinn here are good ones, all of them, right? It's about people who have heard a wonderful Quran. They believe, you know what I mean? Like, there's no bad jinn mentioned here.
That's really important to point out. I appreciate that. Yeah.
No worries, Miss Mona. So I understand the hang-ups. You're like, oh, jinn, I have this, the people have bad image of jinn in general. And so when they hear that the message inside Surah Jinn, you're like, oh, that's the Surah of the devils. And I think they jump to conclusions, right? But in reality, it's trying to showcase that, hey, let's not be racist against the jinns. Right, because there are good jinns.
Let's not be racist. I like that.
Well, I think furthermore to support your arguments and looking at it from your point of view is that if the jinn can be convinced by this, hypothetically, well, what's stopping mankind? In effect, the jinn become superior, the ones that choose to believe in our case message.
Miss Mona, let's say even if you don't believe in our message, we should pay you to preach on our behalf because you're really good at convincing me.
I think everything's very deliberate, obviously, in the Word of God, right, Mr. AAA? So that's what got me questioning, all of these beautiful things that McClinton's talking about in this specific chapter. Why jinn? It just makes sense that there are lessons to be learned between the lines, and I'm very much a between the lines kind of person.
Yes, I noticed.
I have a question, though. Do you guys think it's possible that this is a theory set up by past? Do you guys think it's possible that Rashad Khalifa is still alive?
No.
We have literal FBI documents. Like, come on, guys.
Not only is it not possible, I mean, I don't think God would mislead us or deceive us with the messenger, right? So he'd have to argue from the point of view that he's a false messenger, then maybe he's alive. But since I already accept he's a messenger, I doubt he would lie about that.
Wait, but hold on a second. So whose blood is it in the video? And they also show him being carted out, right? Of the.
They have a little autopsy report, bro. They even have like pictures of the autopsy report. Come on, guys.
Yeah. So what do we do with Task?
Dude, the guy's a flat earther, man. Like, we can't like the guy is that much of a skeptic. There's nothing that's gonna make him believe that. I say just ignore him.
Think about it. For his conspiracy theory to be true, he would have had to pay off the FBI, the court systems, the news stations. He'd have to have deeper pockets than God. All right. So it's just not gonna. It's not feasible. It's not rational. Right.
The fact that we don't know what happened to his body, though, and where he lay.
We do know what happened. What do you mean we don't know what happened to his body?
Well, I'm unclear about that. Can we talk a little bit more about what we know about his death? Not so much what happened and everything, but more what followed. Is he buried? What do we know?
Well, I mean, Mona, if I'm in a, like, if I see somebody's autopsy report and the FBI talking about them dying, and they even sentence the person who did it to jail, by the way, 19 years after Rashad died, by the way. Isn't that interesting? He was sentenced 19 years after Rashad
Has
died.
anyone confirmed, though, that this guy's actually in a penitentiary right now?
It's
Have anyone done the
So they
confirmation?
did
Other
DNA
than just the
evidence.
news?
Yeah. His name is Glenn Francis, and they actually found him through DNA evidence on Rashad's body. So, you can actually look this up easily. Just type in Glenn Francis Rashad Khalifa, right? They found him through DNA evidence.
Okay, so there's no doubts around his death on your part.
No, I mean, look, if we're gonna doubt that, then like, how much, are we gonna doubt of
Check
like
the chat.
FBI reports and things like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
how about all of
Check
his
the chat.
followers? Like, are they all in on it too? Like, right? Like his family. How about his wife and his brother? Like, are they all just? Do you kind of know what I'm saying?
Mona, check the chat. That's Rashad's body being carried out, and this is the guy that was got
I
convicted.
haven't been looking at the chat because
Yeah, look at the chat right now.
in.
Yeah, just
hold
look
on.
at the chat for a moment. Oh wait, he's already showing it. McClinton's showing. Oh, whatever.
Oh, that guy, Death killed a messenger. Wow.
Wow.
I do not want to be that guy. But to be captured 19 years after killing him, he's just becoming another example for the.
Isn't it interesting that? Did you guys know that Arizona has the highest proportion of Muslims in the Western United States?
Really?
That's really interesting.
That is interesting, actually.
What are your thoughts on COVID being called what it is?
Oh, I have something
What?
about this, but like, I'm not sure if we should talk about this right now.
Yeah, Sister Sophia. Not only did you arrive late, but you want to divert the conversation to COVID?
We're talking about 19. I mean, I'm on topic. Sophia.
Oh, COVID-19.
I can send you some. How about this? I send you some COVID stuff on 19, all right?
All right.
That is interesting. That is interesting. I never thought of that. COVID-19. Never thought of that.
No, think about
Alright,
it. Why
there
was
you
it
go.
called? There's actually things in it, but let's talk about that later, please.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's not. We don't want to divert. But
I'm sending Sister Sophia some content.
I said that COVID-19 too, and its significance.
I thought I was totally on point with the question.
No,
I thought that you aren't on point.
it's fine. No, it's not completely off point. It's just like where it's like information overload at this point,
I get it.
Wait,
I
so
just
do we
came
see-
in, so I'm like hot and ready
Wait.
to like learn.
Yeah, so
You guys
Mona,
have
did
been
you
at
see-
it. It sounds like.
Mona, did you see Rashad's body?